Tinnitus affects 15% of adults and has almost no effective pharmacological treatments. Here's what CB1 receptors in the auditory system are doing and what the research shows about cannabis and ringing ears. Tinnitus, the perception of sound without an external source, affects roughly 750 million people worldwide and is one of the most undertreated conditions in medicine. Pharmacological options are limited and inconsistent. Cannabis represents a genuinely novel mechanistic approach, though the evidence is mixed and honestly more preliminary than most cannabis content admits. CB1 receptors are expressed in the auditory cortex and in the cochlear nucleus, the brainstem structure that first processes incoming sound signals from the ear. They are also expressed in the inferior colliculus, a key auditory relay center. This is the biological basis for cannabis. Having any interaction with tinnitus, the ECS is present in the auditory processing pathway. The leading hypothesis about tinnitus itself is that it represents aberrant neural activity, essentially the auditory system generating phantom signals in the absence of real input, often following noise-induced hearing damage. CB1 receptors in the auditory pathway appear to play a role in regulating the excitability of auditory neurons, the same neurons that may be firing abnormally in tinnitus. Here is where the evidence gets complicated. Animal research on CB1 and tinnitus has produced contradictory findings. A 2015 study found that CB1 activation in the cochlear nucleus actually increased tinnitus-like behavior in noise-exposed rats, suggesting that for noise-induced tinnitus, cannabis could potentially worsen the underlying neural excitability rather than reduce it. A 2020 review concluded that while the ECS is clearly involved in auditory processing, the direction of CB1 modulation's effect on tinnitus may depend on the type of tinnitus, the location of pathology, and individual factors. Human survey data is more positive. Multiple surveys of tinnitus patients report that cannabis provides subjective relief for a meaningful proportion of users. But survey data captures perceived relief, not objective auditory change. Cannabis's well-documented effects on anxiety and stress, which significantly worsen tinnitus perception, may account for much of the subjective benefit reported. The honest summary: CB1 receptors are in the auditory pathway, tinnitus is driven by neural excitability, and cannabis modulates that excitability in ways that aren't fully characterized for tinnitus specifically. For tinnitus patients using cannabis, the anxiety and stress reduction effects are likely meaningful regardless of any direct auditory mechanism. Follow Terpchild. We cover the complicated answers even when a simple one would be easier. No hype, just honest science.